Okay, so let's talk about retirement. Part of my reason being is because I've recently struck 50 years of age, and you start to realise that it becomes much more of an important thing, than you thought it was when you were younger. Because, I was like, who wasn't like that themselves when they're younger? Well, maybe the odd individual that planned ahead, but most people when they're younger, you think, it's gonna be forever in a way. It's never going to happen to me. It's just something you don't even consider, like death and your funeral. You never think about it when you're younger. There might be odd exceptions to that, but for the most part, for most people, for most ordinary people in most ordinary life situations, you don't think about things like that. Yet it is something that is quite important. So I've got to thinking more about it and been watching a lot of content online with regards to other people's opinions about it, and it's rather interesting because it kind of, for me, I kind of see it starting to boil into two different factions. There's the one side of it where you have some individuals that are high earners that'll invest a lot in pensions, invest a lot in stocks, maybe even have a lot in savings and other assets, and they plan to retire early. And usually if you're on quite a high salary like that, especially if there's two of them, it's quite possible to do so. The only thing that could scupper that is if they adjust the lifestyle to match their income, which is what a lot of people tend to do. But if they don't, then yeah, it can really work out, and they can retire early in the 50s, maybe even in the 40s, and buy that time out until they actually reach retirement age to hit a state pension. This is at least in the UK. There may be similar things abroad, as in how it works. And then that's it. Then they've got the state pension. They may still have some income from the actual private pension plans and investments that they have to keep them going, and they can live quite a comfortable retirement. The other side of things is people that, and this may be the majority of people for all I know, but there's most of the people that won't have much savings. They may have debts because they'll have families and other responsibilities. They might be on lower incomes, and when you're on a lower income, it's much harder to kind of, you've got to be more accountable. And the thing is with all of us, none of us are really taught by our parents or by teachers about finance, about money. The only thing you are taught is to spend. And that's why most people do spend, and most people, according to the statistics, what they do, there's most people that don't even have a certain amount. I think in America it was about $1,000 or $500 to the name, the majority of people. So, and that's in America, and I'd expect a similar picture in the UK. I think part of that, what's changed that, is because of, in the old days, people had less responsibilities. And yeah, money was... It's kind of funny because money had more value, so even though you would technically have less by amount, it stretched a bit more. So he was able to kind of do more with it because he didn't have to do as much with it. Because it's like people always go on about, it was easy for the silent generation and the boomers. And maybe it was in some ways because they didn't have but I don't think it was because of the whole things have got more expensive. I think it was more because back in their day they just didn't have as many responsibilities. So it was easier for them to live more frugally, basically, than it is in today's day and age. So getting back onto the pension thing. So the other category of people are people that are not going to have savings, not really going to have assets. Now it may be advantageous in some ways, because the thing is, if you don't have assets, can actually set you back from claiming certain benefits when you're actually getting your pension. So pension credit is one example. Somebody that doesn't have anything can be eligible to get something like pension credit. This is in the UK. Whereas if you have assets like savings and a house, that can cut you out of things like that. Now, there can always be other benefits that are available for people, not only those people, but even the other type of people potentially are eligible to that. And there is a lot of different categories in between as well with regards to this. But generally, it seems to be these two different pictures, of whichever category you fall into. There can be another one, which could be if people, get sick and have some bad sickness, then they may have to kind of go on to disability. And, that's the way out of the working game as such. And then there's the I think it's still recording. Okay, so that may be their way out of the working game as such. And then there's the I'm just trying to catch my flow now. Yes, also some of the people that are on disability, that may be their way out of the, if they're eligible to disability because of some sickness, then that will be their way out of the working arena, so to speak. So there's that one as well. So it's a very interesting subject, because the thing is, there's no right and there's no wrong with regards to any of this. It's just basically how it all is. And it's what the best options are going to be, because it's something that all of us are going to face at some point, in all fairness, because you can't go on working forever. And I know some people do work into the 70s and into the 80s and maybe even into the 90s, if things don't work out right for them. I don't think they do it out of choice, put it that way. And it's very interesting, like, seeing the options, because I've seen from personal experience with my family, for example. I can use different examples, but I have an uncle who, owns his property because he was able to buy the property cheap, and he worked I think until his mid-50s in a pretty ordinary job, but it was always one of those where it was just him, and he was one of those habitual savers, so he was always saving lots of money. And it seems like that's been his way out of the game. He's probably built up that amount, whether he's invested it or not, in whatever, and that enabled him to basically retire early until such a point as he gets to claim the state pension. There's other ones as well. I've seen where I've got other family members where basically they don't have much and they're on pension credit, so but again, it seems a fairly comfortable life. You get housed and things like that. So and then looking at, like, my family and how it was for my parents, they retired, but they wanted to get into a bungalow, but because they had a property which they owned, but that actually kind of set them back. Otherwise they would have been able to get into a bungalow, because the house that they had and still have wasn't valuable enough to sell and get a bungalow. So it's kind of, this is where assets can kind of come back and bite you in the arse, so to speak, with regards to a lot of things, because if you have too much of something, it makes you ineligible for certain options. And the funny thing is that, like I said, there's two different situations, and the reality is everybody's situation is different in all sorts of little intricate ways, because there's some videos where I've seen where you see some people doing pension budgets, which is fair enough and very wise to do. It's wise to even think about before you even think about retirement. And it's funny when you see people's lifestyle costs, because it's just like a general budget where they'll list lots of outgoings, and obviously people's outgoings vary, so for example, you might have one person that will pay for something like internet, another person might not use internet, so they don't need to pay for that. And then some people might be paying rent, some people might be paying mortgage, or have other housing costs, so it really does differ and vary, and that can be a large factor in everything as well. So it's very interesting, as in, like, just thinking about what the best option is going forwards for your retirement. I'm starting to think about my retirement now and my plans, exiting the working game. I know it's a little while off, yeah. I don't even know if I'll be able to get to retire early, because, like I said, a lot of variables can come into that. I'd love to. I'd love to be able to, and it's not saying my job's bad or anything like that. I do a job that I can manage, But yeah, if you had the opportunity, by all means, everybody wants to be wealthy and things like that. But in reality, if you're working in a job, which is probably the majority of people out there, you only need enough income to basically cover your lifestyle. And if you can always scale and tone your lifestyle down to match whatever you have, basically live within your means, then you're going to win every day. You can't lose when you do that. It's only if you're living beyond your means. And, you know, I mean, my father used to say, the more you have to worry about, which is absolutely true. You know, you want minimal outgoings, especially as you get older. You don't need things. Lots of people will buy things what they don't really need, what they think will make them happy, or maybe even worse, even to impress others. And you don't need to do any of that. You don't need that. As you get older, you just need the basics, you know, and hopefully throughout your life, not just when you're older, because they have this thing about people retiring, and you know, then when they retire, they're going to do loads of travelling and go on holiday all the time. I think this is what some people think, and some people might actually do it. But the reality is that when you're older, even though you can still do that, it becomes more of a chore, more of a hassle. You're not as able as you was when you were younger. You don't have as much energy as you was when you were younger. So I think there has to be an element of where you have to do that when you're younger. And I'm kind of glad that I have done quite a bit of that in my life. So, you know, I'm not one of those people that if I did retire, or if I did get old and let's say you're, you know, immobile with some disability or something, and you're looking back and thinking, well, at least I've done stuff while I was, you know, young, healthy and able-bodied, which I think everybody should do, at least to some degree. Obviously it's what level you can do that to without breaking yourself and bankrupting yourself. But yeah, those are my thoughts on retirement as it is. I'll probably do another video or two on this because it's a very interesting topic. But let me know your opinions and your thoughts about retirement. You know, retiring early, you know, retiring with assets and savings, which is the classic thing, or just retiring with nothing. Because those seem to be the main two options. Of course, there is other ones in between, but yeah, I've been thinking more about this, and those are my current thoughts on this. If you've got this far watching the video and you like it, please do give it like my content, please do give it a like, and you can subscribe to my channel if you want. That'll certainly help with things, and thanks for watching if you've got this far, and I'll catch you on the next video.